Darth Vader, Agent Smith, the Xenomorph. One would be hard-pressed to find a film genre that has birthed as many iconic villains as science fiction. Be it the interplanetary reach of their wrath, the extraterrestrial origin stories, or simply a spooky futuristic outfit, the genre just lends itself to birthing bad guys that take up a place in our hearts, minds, and nightmares. But unfortunately, sometimes great sci-fi villains can be trapped in very terrible movies, and that's exactly what we're here to talk about today. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 great sci-fi villains that are trapped in terrible movies. Number 8. Skeletor, Masters of the Universe, 1987. As He-Man's popularity began to dwindle in the late 80s, an infamous science fantasy adaptation was made as a last-ditch attempt to breathe life back into the franchise. Unfortunately, this was more like the final wonky rusted nail in its coffin. You see, series antagonist Skeletor has always been, for many, the crown jewel of the He-Man universe, and even in Gary Goddard's ghastly attempt to bring the figurine-selling machine to the big screen, this fact remains true. Now, to be fair, it isn't hard to look good next to Dolph Lundgren in this film, who displays the acting chops of a 2x4 plank of wood. He looks like he genuinely has no idea what is going on half the time and spends the other half gurning like a madman. Blend that with awkward dialogue, clumsy fight scenes, and the unpopular choice to set most of the movie on Earth as opposed to Eternia, and you've got yourself a recipe for disaster. Thankfully, classic actor Frank Langella wades through the sea of 80s cheese and transcends a dodgy skeletal nose job on an otherwise outstanding costume to provide a truly memorable performance. His insatiable urge to see He-Man not just die but crumble in submission to him emits an aura of true wickedness. Where the actor lacks the irresistibly lovable pantomime charm of the cartoon Skeletor, he replaces it with pure, bad-to-the-bone Shakespearean villainy. Number 7. Hedorah, Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster. After directing most of the franchise's prior movies, Ishiro Honda passed on Godzilla's mantle to Yoshimitsu Banno, a decision that he would actually come to regret, saying that he actually ruined Godzilla. Now, this film is full to the brim with bizarre scenes, from a weird hallucinogenic fish party, which Honda apparently happened to walk in on and then promptly walked out of without saying a word, a pre-apocalypse festival on Mount Fuji, and most infamously, a flying Godzilla. Now, Godzilla himself is at his most pathetic in this film. He does little to nothing of worth in this flick, save for the last 10 minutes where he rips some nondescript orbs out of the Smog Monster's body. Now, the Smog Monster itself is a much more menacing beast who feeds off of the Earth's pollution, and watching it huff the fumes from a power plant chimney is disturbingly vile. This freak of nature can transform between sea and land-based forms and is packing poisonous gas and lasers for good measure. Now, it had the capacity to be a brilliant baddie for an eco-parable, but unfortunately the film's environmental message is flimsy at best, as the JSDF never once think to try and reduce population, instead opting to dry him out with 3 million volts of electricity. Not exactly how Captain Planet would do things, I reckon. Number 6. Carl, the Cell. Now, The Cell stars Jennifer Lopez as a psychologist and Vince Vaughn as an FBI agent who tracked down a serial killer's latest kidnapped victim through the use of an advanced technology, which allows them to penetrate his mind, sending them into a simulated reality within the criminal's consciousness. Vincent D'Onofrio does a spectacular job depicting the unstable nature of a psychotic man broken by a history of abuse at the hands of his father, and materializes a character whose thought process is both intriguing and very frightening. His twisted mind is personified by scenery which looks like it belongs on the set of a weird goth music video and has a disturbed beauty, and journeying through it delves into the source of his warped psyche and the inescapable cycle of torment that he's trapped in. But this abstract approach begins to feel obnoxious as more and more convoluted symbols are stacked on top of each other, as if to say, analyze me, look at me, I'm so deep. And when the rest of the film is such a drag to get through, you just end up wanting to whack on one of the funky skin suits that they wear and transport yourself into the mind of somebody watching a better film. Number 5. General Thane, Planet of the Apes, 2001. Although recent years have proven that rebooting old sci-fi film franchises can turn out astronomically worse, Tim Burton's attempt at Planet of the Apes is still recognized as an undeniable failure. It's mostly an uninspired rehash of the original 1968 film, inelegantly repurposing its dialogue and narrative. The few new additions it does make are contrived to say the very least, and of course the brain-exploding twist ending featuring Abraham Lincoln himself is just best left unexplored. But one thing is agreed upon, however, however, and that is that the film is full of great performances. Paul Giamatti and Helena Bonham Carter are exceptional behind their astoundingly apish makeup, although lead role Mark Wahlberg apparently only brought one facial expression with him to the set. Seriously, the apes really outperformed the humans on this one. And amongst these primitive performances was Tim Roth's show-stopping appearance as General Thane, a fascist chimp who harbours an unflinching disdain for the human race. Roth embodies a seething, snarling sadist who is consumed by hatred. His head remains tilted downwards, adopting an evil glare at all times, and his crouched physicality characterises his crippling rage. Seriously, Thane absolutely oozes evil in this film, and he was the best part of a bad bunch. Number 4, Karen, Appleseed, 1988. Now on paper, Appleseed has got everything going for it. An adaptation of Masamune Shirow's most personally prized manga, and this is coming from the guy who wrote Ghost in the Shell, in the hands of Studio Gainax, who went on to produce such sci-fi masterpieces as Neon Genesis Evangelion and FLCL. But this film is a mere shell of its source material, derailing its more intricate content and filling the gaps with unnecessary amounts of profanity. Set in Olympus, a post-World War III utopian society, Appleseed follows the buddy cop pairing of Dunan and her bioroid partner as they tackle the terrorist threat of a freedom-seeking cyborg named AJ Sebastian. Now you can catch a whiff of some interesting ideas here, exploring human nature and the unfulfillment of a life without challenge, and a Greek mythology motif which implies that there are some more thoughtful concepts hidden deep within this 80s corniness, but the film's short runtime completely snuffs these elements out. Sebastian's partner in crime is a double agent named Karen, and is the only character who manages to carry some of the manga's conceptual depth with him. After his wife, dissatisfied with her sheltered life in Olympus, kills herself and the state hack into his memories to discover why, he grows to resent the stagnancy and totalitarian rule of paradise. His belief that struggling for advancement is part of the human condition spins out into violence as a result of his trauma, and they lay the foundation for an engaging and sympathetic villain. But Appleseed's disregard for dialogue, which doesn't include F-bombs, leaves little time for him to flesh out his ideals on the big screen. Number 3, Sam Phillips, Extro. When Sam is abducted by aliens, his wife assumes that he's run out on her and their child, but when he returns 3 years later, she has a new partner and his arrival causes disruption in the family. Oh, and another cause of disruption is the fact that Sam is harbouring a gruesome alien parasite which he transmits to his family, ensuing plenty of carnage. There's also that going on as well. Now, far from the worst pick amidst a sea of awful sci-fi B-movies, with an engaging premise and acting that looks award-winning when compared to most others, there is potential here for a unique kitchen sink style of sci-fi horror. But Extro fails as a successful sci-fi horror on 2 accounts, those being the sci-fi and the horror. None of the scientific elements are touched upon, the origin or motivations of the alien aren't even considered, and the suspenseful moments and jump scares are equally ineffective, with only a single scene where Sam, a full-size man, bursts out of a woman's womb, providing any real visceral reaction. But what does work though is the domestic dynamic at play here, the combination of awkward familial circumstances and the hidden threat of an estranged alien father creates a simultaneously unnerving and intriguing story. This could have been a great psychological horror or sci-fi mystery which plays on the ambiguity between the distrust for Sam's intentions returning to his family and the obliviousness to his true danger as an extraterrestrial attacker. But as it stands, this unnerving villain is not quite able to break through Extro's amateurish exoskeleton. Number 2, Darth Maul, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The Phantom Menace is arguably the most shambolic Star Wars film outside of the sequels. Vapid characters, a boring plot, Jar Jar Binks, you've heard it all before, but accepting all of these blatant shortcomings, it's important to remember that this film was actually cursed by insurmountable expectations. A decade and a half since the franchise's last installment, the hype was very real for Episode 1, so much so that the film's opening night cost the US economy $293 million on account of workers phoning in sick to see the premiere. And one element that fueled this hysteria was the antagonist teased in the trailers. His striking image and unique saber staff captivated fans, and he quickly became the hottest action figure to have. They were understandably disappointed then when Darth Maul turned out to only say 31 words in the entire film. His mysterious presence in the film, however, molded him into an enigma, and he swiftly became the Boba Fett of the prequels. And he's gone on to become one of the most beloved and intriguing villains in the franchise. And number 1, M. Bison, Street Fighter. One of cinema's most revered so bad it's good films, the it's good half of Street Fighter is credited down to its iconic villain. Raul Julia's performance as M. Bison is the stuff of legend and is easily the saving grace of an otherwise awful movie. Now, it's hard to believe that anyone who worked on this schlockfest played a single round of Street Fighter, as most of the roster are portrayed as vague silhouettes of their video game counterparts. Plagued by a tight deadline, a hectic scattered film schedule, and crew members suffering from food poisoning and even one person having a heart attack, it's a feat in of itself that this corny catastrophe ever saw the light of day. But thank heavens that it did, as we were graced by a grand, menacing M. Bison who commanded the space of every scene and declared each of his lines with a striking assuredness of a true megalomaniac. What further consolidates the legendary status of this role is the fact that Julia performed this whilst battling terminal stomach cancer, in honour of his 2 children who were big fans of the franchise. His dedication to the role is a reflection of his dedication to his kids through his final act of kindness, and his legacy is forever cemented in this greatly cherished stinker of a film. And there we go, my friends. Those were 8 great sci-fi villains that were trapped in terrible movies. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Instagram at RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope to see you over there, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.